I want to start with a question. When was the last time you were truly alone? Not just physically by yourself, but genuinely disconnected, no phone, no music, no podcast running in the background. Just you and your thoughts. For many of you, that might be harder to remember than you'd expect. We live in an age of constant connection, where being alone is often seen as something to avoid, something uncomfortable, or even something sad. But what if I told you that for a significant portion of the population, particularly those we might call deep thinkers, solitude isn't just pleasant, it's psychologically essential? Not loneliness, mind you, but chosen, intentional solitude. Today we're going to explore why some minds don't just prefer time alone, but actually require it to function at their best. We'll dive into the neuroscience, the psychology, and the practical wisdom that can help all of us understand this fundamental human need. Let's start by clearing up a crucial misunderstanding. Loneliness and solitude are not the same thing. In fact, they're almost opposites. Loneliness is an unwanted state of isolation. It's the painful feeling that you're disconnected from others when you desperately want connection. Loneliness has been linked to serious health consequences. Chronic loneliness can be as damaging to your health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day, according to research from Brigham Young University. Solitude, on the other hand, is the intentional choice to be alone. Desired, it's restorative, and for many people it's where they feel most authentically themselves. The psychiatrist Anthony Storr wrote an entire book on this called Solitude, A Return to the Self, where he argued that our culture's emphasis on relationships as the only path to fulfillment ignores a fundamental truth. Some of humanity's greatest achievements have come from people who spent significant time alone. Think about it: Einstein, Newton, Emily Dickinson, Nikola Tesla. These weren't people avoiding the world out of fear or sadness. They were people who did their best work in solitude. The key distinction is choice and emotion. If you're alone and it hurts, that's loneliness. If you're alone and it nourishes you, that's solitude. The science of the solitude-seeking brain. So what's actually happening in the brains of people who seek solitude? Research in neuroscience has revealed fascinating differences in how different brains process stimulation and reward. A lot of this comes down to the introversion-extroversion spectrum, which, contrary to popular belief, isn't really about being shy or outgoing. It's about how your brain responds to dopamine. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter associated with reward and pleasure. Here's the key finding. Introverted brains appear to be more sensitive to dopamine. They get more stimulation from less input. It's like having the volume knob turned up higher on life. Dr. Marty Olson-Laney, in her book The Introvert Advantage, explained that introverts rely more on a different neurotransmitter system, one that uses acetylcholine, which is activated during quiet, inwardly focused activities like thinking, reading, or reflecting. What does this mean practically? It means that the same party that energizes an extrovert can be neurologically exhausting for an introvert. It's not about preferring books to people or being antisocial. It's about different nervous systems processing the world differently. There's also compelling research on what's called cognitive load. Every social interaction, even positive ones, requires processing, reading facial expressions, managing turn-taking in conversation, monitoring tone, adjusting your behavior based on social cues. For deep thinkers who are already processing information at multiple levels, adding constant social cognitive load can lead to mental fatigue. Solitude removes that load. It's not that these individuals can't handle social interaction. Many are quite skilled at it. It's that their batteries recharge in quiet, not in crowds. Dr. Elaine Aron's research on highly sensitive persons, HSPs, adds another layer. About 20% of the population has a nervous system that processes information more deeply and thoroughly. These individuals notice subtleties others miss, reflect more before acting, and are more affected by their environments. For HSPs, solitude isn't luxury. It's necessary for preventing overstimulation and maintaining emotional balance. Solitude and creativity. Now let's talk about one of the most powerful benefits of solitude: creativity. There's a reason why so many breakthrough insights happen in the shower, on a solo walk, or at 3 a.m. when you can't sleep. Our brains do some of their most creative work when we're alone and not actively trying. Neuroscientists have identified what's called a default mode network, a system in the brain that activates when we're not focused on the external world. This is when we daydream, make unexpected connections, and have our aha moments. The default mode network doesn't activate well when we're in constant conversation or responding to social demands. It needs space. It needs solitude. Psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, who spent decades studying creativity, found that creative individuals across all fields shared one habit: they spent significant time alone, not because they were antisocial, but because creative work requires what he called flow, a state of deep focus that's nearly impossible to achieve in a buzzing, interruptive environment. Think about writers. Most don't write their novels in coffee shops surrounded by chatting friends. They write alone, often in the early morning or late at night, when the world is quiet. Think about programmers who do their best coding in deep work sessions, headphones on, world tuned out. Think about scientists who have their eureka moments not in crowded labs, but during solitary reflection on their data. Solitude creates the conditions for your mind to wander productively, to make connections it wouldn't make under social pressure, to stay on topic, to explore ideas without immediately needing to defend or explain them. Authenticity and self-knowledge. Here's something we don't talk about enough. Constant social engagement can create a distorted sense of self. When you're always around others, you're always performing to some degree, not in a fake way necessarily, but you're constantly receiving and responding to social feedback. You see yourself through others' reactions. You adjust, you accommodate, you present. There's nothing wrong with this, it's part of being human. But if you never step away from that mirror, you can lose touch with who you are when no one's watching. The philosopher Paul Tillich wrote about the courage to be. Part of that courage is the willingness to spend time with yourself, to hear your own thoughts without the static of other people's expectations. Deep thinkers often report that they don't know what they truly think about something until they've had time alone to process it. In conversation, especially in groups, there's pressure to have an immediate opinion, to keep up with the pace, to align with the group. In solitude, you can take your time. You can sit with uncertainty. You can change your mind 3 times before landing on what you actually believe. This is how you develop genuine self-knowledge, rather than just a socially constructed identity. Psychologist Sherry Turkle, in her book Reclaiming Conversation, makes a powerful argument that the capacity for solitude is actually the foundation for the capacity for genuine connection with others. She writes, "If we don't teach our children to be alone, they'll only know how to be lonely." What she means is that people who are comfortable with solitude bring their authentic selves to relationships. They're not desperately seeking others to complete them or tell them who they are. They come to connection from a place of wholeness, not neediness. The cultural misunderstanding. Despite all this evidence, our culture often pathologizes solitude. Think about the language we use. Someone who enjoys being alone is called a loner, and that's rarely meant as a compliment. We ask, "Are you okay?" when we see someone eating alone. We assume that people who don't constantly socialize must be sad, anxious, or somehow deficient. This is particularly intense in workplace culture. Open office plans are designed on the assumption that collaboration and constant interaction produce the best work. But research by organizational psychologist Susan Cain shows that many of the most productive workers are those given space for focused, solitary work. The irony is that many of the same people who romanticize the idea of the tortured artist working alone in their studio will simultaneously worry about their coworker who prefers to eat lunch by themselves. We need to recognize that different cognitive styles exist and are equally valid. The person who needs 3 hours alone after a social event isn't broken or antisocial. They're recharging. They're processing. They're being who they are. Practical wisdom: finding balance now. Let me be clear about something important. None of this is an argument for isolation or avoiding all human connection. Humans are fundamentally social creatures. Even the most introverted among us need meaningful relationships. Study after study shows that quality social connections are essential for mental and physical health. The key word there is quantity, not quantity. Deep thinkers often have fewer relationships, but those relationships tend to be deeper and more meaningful. They prefer 1 3-hour conversation with a close friend over 3 1-hour conversations with acquaintances. The goal isn't to choose between solitude and connection. It's to find the balance that works for your particular nervous system. Here's some practical wisdom. If you're someone who needs solitude, build it into your life intentionally. Don't wait until you're burned out. Schedule it like you'd schedule exercise or meals. Early mornings, evening walks, weekends with no plans. Treat these as non-negotiable. If you live with others, communicate your needs clearly. Help them understand that when you need alone time, it's not a rejection of them, it's maintenance of yourself. If you're someone who doesn't naturally need much solitude, work on understanding and respecting those who do. When someone tells you they need space, believe them. Don't take it personally. And for everyone, experiment with true solitude occasionally. Not just physical aloneness, but actual disconnection. No phone, no input, just you and your thoughts. Notice what comes up. You might discover a part of yourself you've been too busy to meet. Let me leave you with this thought. In a world that's increasingly loud, crowded, and connected, the ability to be comfortably alone is not just a personality quirk. It's a form of freedom. For deep thinkers, solitude isn't about running away from the world. It's about having the space to process the world deeply, to create meaningfully, and to show up in relationships as their authentic selves. So the next time you see someone sitting alone, reading in a cafe, or politely declining yet another social invitation, don't assume they're lonely. They might just be doing exactly what their mind needs. And if you're someone who needs time alone but feels guilty about it, I want you to hear this clearly. Your need for solitude is valid. You're not antisocial. You're not broken. You're not less than. You're just wired for depth, and depth requires space. Thank you.